Well, welcome back to NUICfootball.com. We are getting ready to get set to take in week one. Got a lot of interesting matchups here on the docket to start off the season, but some of our top games that we're really looking forward to are Milledgeville at Orangeville. Both teams were state ranked last year in the 8-man rankings. Amboy at Polo should be two of the top teams that we're looking forward to in the 8-man game this year. Forreston at Stockton. Obviously, Forreston's going to start off in the state rankings this year, looking to see what Stockton can bring back from a 3-6 season a year ago. And then our other game is going to be Fulton and Galena. Game last year that Fulton won by a point, 14-13. That should be an interesting game, and it's one of those games that both these teams really want to get that W under their belt right out of the gates. Our state rankings have come out for the 2022 season as well from the AP. Obviously, as usual, there are a lot of discrepancies or things to talk about in regards to where teams have landed to start the season. But either way, the number one thing we know in Class 1A is exactly what happened, and that is Lena Winslow takes over that number one spot. But we also find Forreston at number 6 and Fulton at number 8, with Galena in the area to receive votes for state rankings. In Class 3A, Du-Pec did not make the top 10, but they are receiving votes and will start the season ranked number 14 in Class 3A. Overall, it's going to be a pretty good year, 1A, 2A, 3A. Looking at very tough classes in 2A and 3A specifically, nothing different than what it was just a year ago. But, Class 1A, there are going to be some contenders in there. Obviously, Lena Winslow, Forreston, Fulton from the NUIC. We're looking at perennial power in Athens. Ridgeview Lexington made a very surprise run to the semifinals, but also proved why they were there a season ago when they lost to Lena Winslow. They're going to be a team to look at, a team that we've talked about over the last few years, and we recently last saw them at state in 2019 as Central A&M. They're going to be in the state rankings. And then a couple teams that we've also seen at state over the past 4 seasons are Carrollton and Camp Point Central, as they are also starting in those state rankings. We'll go through, talk about each of the games, break down our game of the weeks as well, and we're going to get that started right now. All right, our first game that we're going to talk about is going to be Sciota West Prairie at Aquin. This game is going to take place on Saturday. It's actually the first time these two teams are playing each other. Last year, West Prairie went 4-6, where they lost to Polo in the first round of the playoffs, 66-16. And Aquin went 6-4, where they started off with a great start to the season. Eventually trickled down as the season went on, finished at 6-4, losing in the first round to Amboy 52-28. Don't have a whole lot of information on West Prairie. I don't feel that they're a very strong team overall. This should be a game that Aquin should win handily. But you got to take a look at what Aquin replaces. They have a lot of holes to fill. They do return quarterback Aiden Wolf, who threw for 1,908 yards with 19 touchdowns last year. But at the same token, he's also their leading rusher coming back for the 2022 season with 135 yards rushing on his stat line. They're going to rely on Jackson Eggy, both on the offensive and defensive lines. Jackson's also their leading tackler coming back from their defense from a season ago with 34 tackles. And at wide receiver, they're going to rely on some inexperienced receivers that received a little bit of playing time, but guys are definitely have to pick up big roles in this Aquin offense for the Bulldogs to be successful, and that's Hunter Buss and Cooper Hathaway. Buss caught the ball for 67 yards last season, halfway at 35 yards. So not a lot of stats to go with what we need to see out of Aquin, but they are capable of making it happen with Aiden Wolf at quarterback. We'll have to see what Coach Shepard has put together for the Bulldogs. But look for Aquin to come out of the gates with a strong Week 1 win. Our next game is going to be River Ridge at South Beloit. This is a rematch of a game that took place last year in Week 2 that South Beloit won 44-30. River Ridge ended up finishing the season with a 3-6 record, where South Beloit went 6-5. They lost to West Central in the quarterfinals, 56-14. But South Beloit's one of those teams that we have put in our state rankings as a team that's receiving votes. We're interested to see what they have to come back with. They did lose some key players to graduation, so this is an interesting game to see where South Beloit is at comparatively to the rest of the state in 8-man football. At the same token, this is a game for River Ridge to really show what they can do. They have Seth Nicholas as their leading rusher coming back with 266 yards. They're going to need to rely on him to take some big workload carries for the Wildcats in their offense. Trayton McGovern is going to be one of their focal points at tight end and or receiver. He had 64 yards receiving just a season ago. They're going to be moving Sam Reese to quarterback, which is a position he has played, just doesn't have a lot of varsity experience with it. Last year he threw for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. On defense, again, a little bit of experience that they can build upon. Definitely are going to need some guys to step up into big roles. Brian Appleby is the leading tackler that returns from a season ago with 61 tackles. Ethan Gonzalez has 37 tackles, another guy that the Wildcats are really going to rely on to pick up big minutes. And then Seth Nicholas has 36 tackles as well. That was another player that Coach Nicholas is very high on as far as needing to have big plays out of Seth for the 2022 season and for River Ridge to really have a good campaign this year. In this matchup, I feel that you're going to see a very close game once again. I do think that South Beloit gets this game, but it could go either way. I think this is a great swing game. And like I stated before, if this is a big game for River Ridge, if they can get a win in this game to start the season, you could see some big impact as the season moves forward to help propel River Ridge into the playoffs. I do like South Beloit in this game, but I do expect this one to be a close game. The next game we're going to talk about is one of our top 4 games to watch for this weekend coming through the NUIC ranks, and that is Milledgeville at Orangeville. Last year, these two teams met up in Week 6. Orangeville at the time was ranked number 1 in state. Milledgeville took control of that game early and often, winning outright 56-26. Milledgeville ended up finishing the season 9-2. They lost in the quarterfinals to Amboy 28-18 in a rematch game, whereas Orangeville went on to lose to eventual state champion Polo 12-7 in that state championship game to be the 8-man runner-up, finishing with a record of 11-2. Both teams are going to be very reliant on quite a few people. When you take a look at both of them, they both lost a lot of big players that they had impactful on their seasons a year ago. But Milledgeville is going to be the team that returns the most talent between each of these teams. At quarterback, you have Connor Nye coming back. He's only going to be a junior, but last year as a sophomore, he threw for 1,589 yards and 29 touchdowns. He's also Milledgeville's leading rusher returning, where he ran for 489 yards and 13 touchdowns. At wide receiver, you're going to have Bryce Audie, who caught the ball for 709 yards and 10 touchdowns. However, the Missiles are going to be without Audie for a couple weeks as he's still recovering from an injury earlier this year. So, unfortunately, in this game, we won't see what kind of impact Audie will have. With that, they're going to need to rely on Cason Johnson to step up. Cason Johnson went down late in the season last year with an injury that kept him out the remainder of the year. He had 116 yards with 3 touchdowns a season ago. On defense, again, the Missiles will have to rely on Eric Ebersol, who is their leading tackler coming back. He had 50 tackles a season ago. Other players that are going to need to step up would be Connor Nye and a few of the other guys. Cason Johnson is another one. Again, Audie being injured and missing this game. Unfortunately, he is their second leading tackler coming back for the season. So again, Milledgeville is going to need to rely on some players to step up to fill in some key critical roles to have some success until Audie can get back in that lineup. On the other side of the ball for the Broncos, Orangeville is going to rely on Blake Fulgate as their leading running back coming back. He had 380 yards a season ago. On defense, he was also their leading tackler. Outside of that, Broncos have a lot more holes to fill, both offensively and defensively. As stated in our preview videos, Coach Doyle is very excited for the opportunities that they have. But he's going to need players like Cody Worth, who will be taking over the reins at QB, to step up. Gavin Roth is going to be moving to fullback. He's going to need to be able to make some noise. Mason Pfeiffer is coming to Orangeville. He did not play a season ago, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of impact he can provide for Orangeville, both offensively and defensively. Likewise, on the defensive side of the ball, again, going to need to see Cody Worth pick up some big minutes along with filling some big roles there. And then Nathan Brinkmeyer is another guy to watch for the Broncos this season. In this matchup, though, I do like Milledgeville. I don't know if it'll necessarily be a 30-point runaway like it was last year. That was really a surprise game, to say the least. I do feel that this game will be competitive. It'll be a nice Saturday afternoon to go watch a football game. So if you have nothing to do Saturday, get to Orangeville Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock for kickoff. I do think that Milledgeville will be a 2-touchdown favorite in this game, however, so my pick is the Missiles. Our 8-man game of the week is presented by Best Realty out of Davis, Illinois. With that, it's going to be a showcase game of two of the top teams, our number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the state rankings, which were Polo and Amboy. Last year, Polo won this game 36-28 in week 3, which was kind of one of those games where you're like, wow, did that game really play out as close as it was? Because we knew what talent Polo was, and we weren't expecting a whole lot from Amboy in their first season at 8-man, where they have not had much success dating back to the 2014 season. But Amboy was able to get adapted to the 8-man game, taking a couple lumps early on. They rebounded very well, went on a nice playoff run, finished the season 7-5, where they end up losing in the semifinals to Orangeville 34-12. Polo once again went 13-0, winning their second consecutive state title with that 12-7 win over Orangeville in a very low-scoring state championship affair. Offensively, both of these teams return a lot of firepower. Amboy returns quarterback Tucker Lindenmeyer, who threw for 988 yards with 16 touchdowns a season ago. He also was their leading rusher with 822 yards and another 12 touchdowns. So 28 total touchdowns for Lindenmeyer a season ago, returning to the Clipper offense. Running back Kai Cook returns as well. He rushed for 477 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then they're also going to be relying on Quinn Luffelman to pick up some carries at running back. Last year he only accounted for 74 yards, but definitely should see more of an impactful role in the Clipper offense as we move forward. At wide receiver slash tight end, you're going to see Brennan Blaine returning. The All-Stater had 692 yards receiving last year with 12 touchdowns. Offensively, the Clippers are going to need the offensive line to step up, most notably Landon Montavon and Trey Payne, as they look to take on new roles on that offensive line, filling the gaps of some players that have left due to graduation. It'll be interesting to see what Amboy can do. As stated, we're very high on Amboy, along with a lot of other people around the state. There's a lot of expectations for the Clippers moving into the 2022 season, as they have a year of 8-man under their belt. They have a semifinal appearance under their belt. So now it's what can they build on with the players they have returning, and how can they develop these new up-and-comers that they have coming. Defensively, they're going to return Levi McKinley, who is their leading tackler a season ago with 81 tackles. They'll also have Blaine, Leffelman, and Lindemeyer there. All of those guys finished right around 46 to 54 tackles respectively for the season. So once again, key players in that Clipper defense. Lots of good speed that the Clippers will have both offensively and defensively, with some key experience as well. Another reason why we're very high on the Clippers for the 2022 season. As for Polo, they're going to return their running back duel of Avery Grenoble and Brock Solto. Both guys ran for 1,500 yards last year in an offense that produced well over 4,000 total yards of offense. They combined for 48 rushing touchdowns. Grenoble ran for 25. Solto ran for 23 touchdowns. And each of these two guys had some receiving yards in their rushing attack offense, both pulling in just over 200 yards receiving a season ago. Defensively, those two guys are going to be the stalwarts of the defense. Grenoble is the leading tackler, coming back with 97 tackles, while Solto had 50 tackles a season ago. And on the defensive line, you're looking at Caden Webster, who had 57 tackles. And he is one of those guys that can make some plays on that defensive line. At the same time, he is a gap stuffer. So he can take on that lead blocker. He can take on that offensive lineman and be able to create a hole for the linebackers to shoot through the gaps. And watching him play with Grenoble right behind them, it's a sight to see, as they were able to get a lot of backside pursuit throughout the year last year, and it was one of their staples to success defensively in that state championship win over Orangeville a season ago. Another guy that Coach Alston is also looking at stepping up big time is going to be Brady Wolver, both offensively and defensively. At quarterback, they're going to have a little bit of a loss there with Tyler Murdian graduating, and they're hoping that Carter Murdian, who was their backup last year, can step in. He's the younger brother of Tyler, knows the offense, so it'll be interesting to see how that will transpire. Early on, I do have Polo as the favorite in this game. I think it'll be a very close game, similar to last year. I think this game could swing in either direction. It's definitely our top must-see game of Week 1, and probably one of the hottest tickets across the entire 8-man game in the state, possibly even the game of the year for 8-man in the regular season to start the year off. So it'll be awesome to see this game. If you have nothing to do Friday night, get to Polo. If you're an 8-man fan, this is one of the games you do not want to miss. I do like Polo in this game. I would not be surprised if Amboy can win this game. I have Polo winning by 6. All right, we're going to move over to the 11-man game, where the first game we have is Dakota at Chicago Christ the King. This game was originally scheduled for a 1 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. It has been moved to a 7:30 p.m. kickoff on Friday night. So if you're going to Chicago on Saturday, do not go to this game at Elmhurst because it won't be there. This game it has been moved to Friday, will take place at Elmhurst College. This is the first time both these teams are meeting. Christ the King is a relatively new program. I believe this is their 5th season playing high school football. They were not very good a season ago. They went 2-7 last year. One of their wins came by forfeit over a team from Michigan, and they just don't have a lot of success under their belt. Obviously, Dakota also went 2-7 last year in a very disappointing season. One of the teams that definitely suffered under the COVID issues that have plagued the area the nation and the world for the last couple of years. But Dakota seemed to really lose a lot of steps due to COVID over the last couple seasons. There is a lot of excitement for Dakota as we move into 2022, as they have increased their roster size up to 52 players, and they have a new head coach with Dan Sheets, which we mentioned in our preview videos. Offensively, coming back for the Indians, you're going to have running back Adrian Arellano. He ran for 444 yards a season ago with 4 touchdowns. Coach Sheets is definitely going to rely on him a lot as they are trying to transition their offense from a wing T / spread offense, whatever they are running at any given time, to a more focal run game offense where they're going to primarily focus on the double wing. They probably will transition some wing T, look for a lot of double wing, and then they'll throw in a little bit of spread here and there to get some plays going offensively through the air. At quarterback, Caden Niedermeyer returns. He threw for 318 yards and 2 touchdowns a season ago. His top target also returns, which was Tug Dornick. He received the ball for 134 yards and caught those 2 touchdown passes. On the offensive line, they returned Jake Taylor. And offensively, this is a good game for Dakota to really see what they can get going. It's a good confidence game. With Tommy Bowman transitioning to fullback, Phoenix Blakely is a first-year player going out who will be playing wingback. And then you have Noah Wenzel coming out. He'll be on the offensive line. Coach Sheets is going to need to rely on those guys to pick up some big plays, help out offensively in many different facets, and really set the tone. And this is honestly, this is the best way that Dakota could set up their schedule with a new offense, with a new head coach, with some new players out. Get them familiarized with the offense against a much weaker opponent. But it's also an opponent you don't want to overlook. You can never go into a game overconfident. But definitely excited to see what Dakota has. Again, this is one of those games Dakota has to win early on. 1, to boost that confidence. 2, to start to get that team to gel together, get some of these newer players more conditioned to the game of football, and at the same time propel yourself forward as the season moves on. Defensively, Arellano returns on that side of the ball. He led the team in tackles with 100 tackles a season ago. Tommy Bowman also returns. He had 41 tackles. Case Rocky at cornerback returns. He had 39 tackles a season ago. On the defensive side of the ball, again, they're going to need Wenzel and Blakely to step up on both the defensive line and defensive back areas. Cade Bach is another guy that they're going to expect big plays out of at linebacker. And then Nolan Mayberry will get the starting nod at cornerback as well in the Indian defense. I do expect Dakota to win this game big. Should be a running clock, provided that Dakota can come out and execute the way that they need to be and get ready for that Week 2 matchup with Leland Winslow. Next game we're going to talk about is going to be Forreston at Stockton. These two teams squared off a year ago in week 1, where Forreston won 38-14. Stockton went 3-6 on the season, where Forreston went 8-3, losing to eventual state champion Lena Winslow in the second round of the playoffs 38-8, just 2 weeks after they had a stunning upset of the Panthers in Lena to close out the regular season. This is definitely one of those games that we have listed as our top 4 games to watch for this weekend, and a lot of that's because of what Forreston loses offensively as far as their playmaking skills in comparison to what Stockton has returning. Forreston's one of those teams we expect to be right where they always are, right in the thick of things, both in the NUIC and in the state. They're going to start off the season ranked number 6 in the state rankings. Offensively, obviously, they return Caleb Sanders, who had 375 yards and 6 touchdowns a season ago. Micah Nelson also returns to the backfield with 174 yards and a touchdown. And McKeon Crace returns to the backfield with 205 yards and a touchdown. Another player that they're going to rely on to get carries is going to be Quinn Frederick. He also ran for just under 200 yards a season ago. A lot of experience, but at the same token, not a lot of experience as far as stats. That's where Forreston will need to rely on these guys to get more of that bulk, be the leaders that they need to be offensively to help propel this rushing attack for Coach Janicki. On the line, you're going to look at Ethan Bacher and Kyler Gans being two of your bigger guys that are going to be relied on to make holes for these running backs. Bacher started at center a season ago. He'll be moving to right tackle. Kyler Gans is playing at tight end, but in the Forreston offense, tight end's more like another additional tackle on that offensive line. And then, it'll be interesting to see who else Coach Janicki will put on that offensive line. You could see Casey DeVries, who only played defense last year, move over and be a two-way player for a senior year as well. On defense, you're going to see Johnny Kobler at D tackle. You're going to see DeVries on the D line. Both those guys had 19 tackles and 32 tackles respectively a season ago. They're going to rely on Kyler Gans as well, who had 37 tackles. Drew Dieterman is another returning starter that the Cardinals have both offensively and defensively on the line. And then you got Quentin Frederick at linebacker with 31 tackles. And you have Peyton Enshoff coming back. He had 4 interceptions and 32 tackles a season ago. Was probably one of the top cornerbacks coming back in the conference this year. Pretty good playmaker. Defensive pass very well. Can come up and hit you on the outside rushing attack as well. It's not afraid to help seal off the edge, which is a huge benefit for the Forreston defense. As for Stockton, they're going to rely on Jace Phillips and Dustin Oppold in the backfield to get more of the carries. Both those guys ran for just over 300 yards a season ago. Jace had 4 touchdowns to Dustin's 2 touchdowns. So they're going to need more playmaking abilities to come up from those guys. Defensively, Phillips was the leading tackler, returning for the Blackhawks. He had 71 tackles. Michael Haas returns on the defensive line with 45 tackles. He'll also be a two-way player taking place on that offensive line for the Blackhawks. And then you got Dustin Oppold also on defense with 37 tackles. The Blackhawks are going to need to fill some roles with guys like Tanner Guile, Wesley Logeman, and then they're also going to rely on Dawson Brocious at center for their offense as well. In this game, I do like Forreston in this matchup. I still feel that with what Forreston is coming back, they have more coming back than what meets the eye per se. A lot of people feel that Forreston is down from a season ago, but they have a lot of guys that have a lot of experience that do return to the Cardinals for 2022. I like Forreston by 2 scores in this game, but this is definitely one of those intriguing matchups that if you are in the Stockton area, get to the game, because again, I have just an inkling that this game is going to be a very good game, and it'll definitely tell us where both these teams are as we move forward in the season. Our next game is the Route 73 showdown between EPC and Lena Winslow. Last year, Lena Winslow won this game 54-6 in Week 1 en route to their state championship campaign. EPC went 1-8, getting their lone win in Week 9 over Walter Christian, where Lena Winslow went 12-2, capturing their 5th state title and 2nd consecutive state title with a 38-25 win over Carrollton. For EPC, they're going to have a lot of players to replace, but they also have a lot of players that return that have gained experience over the years. Most notably, it's going to be Maddox Hayden, coming back at running back. Last year, he rushed for 401 yards and 7 touchdowns. At quarterback, they're going to rely on Carson Heron to take control of the team. This is his first year as the starter, replacing Kellen Hensey. And at tight end will be Max McCullough, who caught the ball for 64 yards a season ago. Used a lot in a rushing attack offense that as a blocker to get downfield. EPC obviously likes to run a spread offense, trying to establish the run game out of it. They haven't been very effective at the pass game recently, but Coach McNutt has some players that he feels can make some plays. Defensively, he feels this is the strongest aspect of their team and is looking for a lot on the defensive side of the ball. With that, you have Hayden coming back again. Like I said, he has 34 tackles from a season ago. Levi Burkholder had 28 tackles. Heron had 21 tackles. And then he's going to be needing guys like Jackson Kemple and Jaden Downs to also step up to fill some big roles. On the other side of the ball, Lena Winslow comes in with Gage Dunker and Jake Zeal returning to the backfield. Both these guys rushed for just over 300 yards apiece a season ago, each with 4 touchdowns apiece. They're going to be taking on bigger roles in this Lena Winslow rushing attack. With them is going to be Gunnar Lobdell, who transfers in from Orangeville. Gunnar has over 2,700 career rushing yards and 44 career rushing touchdowns, with a lot of those coming in the 8-man game a year ago with the Broncos on their state championship game campaign. But at the same token, Lobdell's going to definitely be a big force for the Panthers in the backfield and provide Lena Winslow with another 300 monster rushing attack. On the offensive line, Staples, Henry Engel, and Jake Tippett will help lead the way on that line to make the holes for these guys to run through. Coach Aaron's also looking for big plays out of Sam Pecoraro as he looks to fill in much bigger roles in 2022. Defensively, again, you have Engel, Dunker, and Zeal all returning to the defensive side of the ball. Joining them will be Lobdell, who did have 123 tackles for Orangeville a season ago. On the defensive end, your Coach Aaron is going to rely on Mason Smith to pick back up where he left off a season ago. He had 48 tackles a year ago in spot starts here and there, filling in as a platoon player. Did a very good job both on the defensive end spot and in special teams play. Jace Flynn will also be returning at defensive back. Obviously, some new names to Lena Winslow, but the expectations are high. Lena Winslow will enter 2022 ranked #1 in state, as expected. And again, look for big plays out of Lena Winslow as we move forward. In this game, I feel this will be a running clock style game for the Panthers. I expect to see the Panthers score early and often. At the same time, I'm interested to see how EPC can compete, because it can give us a little bit of an insight to where we can expect to see the Wildcats also as the season moves on. Our next game will be West Carroll at Du-Pec. Last time these two teams met was back in Week 7 of the 2019 season, where Du-Pec won 16-8 en route to their first playoff appearance. West Carroll obviously sat out the 2021 varsity schedule due to low numbers. Du-Pec is coming back as the defending conference champion, winning their first conference title, going 9-2 overall, losing in the second round to IC Catholic 35-12 in the Class 3A state playoffs. For West Carroll, there's not a lot to look forward to, because they have a lot of youth amongst their teams. They're going to be relying on a lot of juniors and sophomores to help propel the Thunder, both offensively and defensively, as they only have 3 seniors on the team this year. Most notably, you're looking at AJ Boardman at quarterback, running back Angel Garcia, and on the offensive line, Adair Pempleton is who Coach Clark has listed as 3 impact players for the Thunder offense for 2022. On defense, he's looking at defensive lineman Aiden West, defensive end Austin Lair, and linebacker Laith Al-Saidi to take control of this defense and have some abilities to help build and grow the Thunder as the season moves on. His expectations are that they will have some issues both offensively and defensively due to their inexperience at the varsity level. He understands that this is a rebuild year and that they're going to have to work on a lot of things to move themselves in the direction that they want to go, which is to get this youth to continue to develop and grow as the season goes on, and hopefully by the end of the year they're playing better football. For Du-Pec, again, they have an offense that has some key players that are returning, but they have a lot of big holes to fill. At quarterback is one of them, with the departure of Hunter Hoffman, who was a record-setting quarterback for the Rivermen, set all their passing marks, touchdown marks, completion percentage, as he has graduated and moved on. Taking his place to start the season will be Will Howard. Again, big shoes to fill in a high-profile air attack that the Rivermen like to have. At running back will be A.J. Mulcahy. He is their leading rusher that returns from a season ago with 546 yards and 5 touchdowns. He is going to have to fill the role that Trent Taylor did last year, which is to get the ball moving, get the ball spread out, and then attack the running lanes that are provided for you. And AJ is set to have a big year, and the Rivermen are going to need for him to have a big year in order for them to see success. On the offensive line, you have Caden Degner and Breon Green coming back, which are 2 staples from their offensive line a season ago. So as long as Coach Hoffman can fill some guys around them to make this line go, it should be a pretty formidable offense. I know Coach Hoffman's very excited with the depth that he has. Defensively, Mulcahy returns at his defensive back position, comes up a lot, and plays kind of like a strong safety or an extra linebacker. He had 87 tackles a season ago. Also joining him is linebacker Caden Degner, who had 65 tackles. Breon Green on the defensive line had 47 tackles, and then Will Howard at his DP position picked up another 42 tackles. Du-Pec is going to start the season outside of the top 10 state rankings in Class 3A, but they will start off with the 14th spot in the Class 3A rankings. So obviously there's a lot of expectations for Du-Pec in the conference. Notably, they are considered to be the second highest rated team coming back in the NUIC for 2022. And we expect them to be right there at the end of the season, playing for another conference title this year. In this matchup, unfortunately, it's not going to be one of the best games. It'll be more of a tune-up game for Du-Pec and hopefully a learning experience for West Carroll, but I expect Du-Pec to win by a running clock. And our 11-man best Realty game of the week takes us to Fulton, where they're going to play host to Galena. Last year, Fulton won this game 14-13 in a Week 1 thriller. Galena went on to have a 5-5 season where they lost in the first round to Forreston 22-14. Fulton took that win, took off with it to a 9-3 record before losing to eventual state champion Lena Winslow in the quarterfinals 54-28. For Galena, they are going to be like a lot of teams. They have some big roles to fill on playmaking positions. Obviously, they lost Shemahorn at wide receiver. They lost Hafel at quarterback, so they're going to need some guys to step in and fill those roles. With that, at running back, the Pirates will be relying on Sam Eaton, who had 482 yards rushing a season ago. John Wubin will take the signal caller duties at quarterback. He will be a first-year starter. And on the offensive line, Coach Freed's looking at players Ashton Sproul, Colby Knauts, and Keaton Bauer to fill in and step up into these roles to help that Galena offense move the ball. Defensively, they returned Jack Reese, who had 43 tackles. Keaton Bauer had 38 tackles. And likewise, again, they're going to need some other guys to step up. Coach Freed's very excited with the offseason that the Pirates have had. Some of the guys he's looking at stepping up are going to be Tanner Wienen, Lucas Dugan, Cooper Einsweiler, and Knauts on that defensive side of the ball. You know, Galena is going to start off receiving votes in the state rankings. They did not crack the top 10, but a lot of people are interested to see what Galena can do. Obviously, they've been in the state rankings each of the last 2 seasons, so that's probably providing them some of the votes for this upcoming season. Not surprising. But again, they have a lot of holes to fill, and in the NUIC, we all know it's very tough in order to get everything going. For Fulton, they are going to rely on quarterback Braden Dykstra to take over. He filled in for a couple weeks when Patrick Laura went down with injury, threw for 438 yards and 4 touchdowns. At wide receiver, they have Balin Damhoff returning, who had 335 yards receiving with 4 touchdowns. Ryan Eads is their leading rusher coming back for the season. He ran for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns as a platoon running back a season ago. And on the offensive line, they return Braden Damhoff. Defensively is where the Steamers are going to be very tough. They return quite a bit. Leading tackler coming back is Cole Skipper. He had 114 tackles a season ago. Zane Panel had 76 tackles. Eads had 74 tackles. At defensive back, he had Connor Sheridan, who had 38 tackles. Ethan Price returns with 59 tackles. Braden Damhoff will be on the defensive line again, where he recorded 54 tackles. And you got Joel Ford coming back at his linebacker position, where he had 46 tackles. So, Coach Lower is very excited with what he has coming back. He feels that they are going to be very competitive. The Steamers are going to start off the year ranked number 8 in the Class 1A state rankings. There's a lot of high expectations around Fulton for this season. Defensively is definitely going to be the strong focal point for the Steamers early on, and then trying to see what their offense can develop as the game moves forward, or as the season moves on. This game is obviously our NUIC game of the week. It's also one of our top 4 games to go to this week if you're in the Galena, Fulton area, or if you don't have a team to root for and you want to get to a big game. Take in this game here, Galena at Fulton. I do like Fulton in this game. I think it could definitely be one of those games that can go either way. Both coaches are very excited for the offseason work that they've had, the players that they have coming back. Obviously, with every new season, you have something that is unknown until you get to that week 1 game and see how everybody plays. But my pick is Fulton this week. I feel that they are a touchdown favorite in this game, and I'm very intrigued by this game because I really want to see. I expect a lot out of Fulton. Galena, I'm a little unknown of because of how much they lost from a season ago. I see the names and I see everything else. It's how can they make that happen on the field? So I like Fulton in this game. Definitely an interesting game to look at. Be awesome if it was the same style game it was last year. And if it is, expect a lot of big things out of both these teams as the season moves on. Well, that gives you a look at what we have to look forward to in week 1 of the NUIC, both 8-man and 11-man. Obviously, we have some good games on the docket for the week 1 opener. As we shift forward, each week is going to get better and better, in my opinion. I feel that week 1 is probably one of the weakest weeks as far as overall competition, but I think it'll continue to grow. I do expect to see more parity in the NUIC, both 11-man and 8-man wise. And it's going to be a very exciting season as we move forward. Obviously, the 8-man games, we're going to get quite a few more non-conference games that are going to be bigger matchups when we see teams start to play the likes of a St. Thomas More, West Central, Milford Cisna Park. And in the 11-man game, we got games with Muskegon Catholic Central out of Michigan, Marion Central Catholic, Knoxville, GCMS. So there's a lot of non-conference games that will be coming down the road that will be interesting games as well. But week 1, this is a good week 1 starter kit to get going. And I feel that the NUIC overall is going to be very strong in consideration to the rest of Class 1A. I feel that Class 2A and 3A overall are much stronger divisions this year, once again, as they were last year. I do expect Du-Pec to have quite the ride in Class 3A again. That North bracket's going to look very tough with both Byron and IC Catholic starting off the season ranked 1 and 2 respectively. Both of them are going to fall within that same 16-team bracket with Du-Pec, provided that the Rivermen do make the playoffs as expected. But, Class 1A is up to the NUIC to lose. Right now, again, the NUIC early favorites to start the season. They do enter this year looking for their 6th consecutive state championship for the conference. Lena Winslow's trying to gun for their 3rd consecutive state title, but you got teams like Forreston, Fulton, and Galena that are in the way. Up-and-comer Stockton and Dakota are also trying to make some noise as well. Overall, great season ahead. Get out to the games. Get to those Friday night lights. It's great to have them back. It's August. It can't be more exciting than high school football starting back up. Support your teams. Support the conference. As always, root for the NUIC.